eu ver o que mais aqui. Vamos dar uma pulada.
Let's move on here a little bit.
Eu não quero fazer aqui uma história do
give you a history
ouro,
of the gold standard.
Mas eu queria comentar só com vocês o seguinte.
I just wanted to comment a few things with you.
Como ponto de partida.
If we take as our starting point, if you look at it as, if you consider the gold standard as a starting launching point,
que foi criado na Inglaterra,
that was created in England
1844,
in 1844,
sistema de reservas
with a
fracionadas,
fractional reserve banking system,
duas camadas,
two different layers. There was the fractional reserves that were kept in the Bank of England, and the fractional reserves of each commercial bank
carregava contra suas próprias
that they had against their own liabilities. If we look at this as the starting point,
quando esse sistema
when this system changes
sistema de câmbio ouro, onde
to an exchange system where instead of keeping gold reserves, banks start to have banknotes from other countries, other banks or other central banks of other countries. We move to a system that increases the amount of discretion that's allowed. Until we reach a system that doesn't have gold reserves.
Uma tentativa de fazer paridades fixas de câmbio.
And it makes an attempt to have parity of exchange, and then soon even that parity no longer exists. Each one of these changes
o que acontece é aumento da
leads to an increase
dos bancos centrais
in the level of discretion of the central banks
política monetária.
And their monetary policy.
À medida em que isso vai acontecendo,
as this happens,
o que sobra para segurar o valor da moeda
what you have left to hold the value of the currency is just the commitment of the monetary authorities to keeping the price level from increasing according to some index, consumer price index or something like that.
O que é surpreendente
em
relação a isso tudo
about this process
as implicações intertemporais
is that the intertemporal implications of inflationary changes in currency supply and the limitations that the production system has as monetary control as proposed by the Austrian business cycle theory are concepts that have been known since the 30s. Nevertheless, during the Depression and during the recent crisis, many economists were surprised
da expansão inflacionária de crédito,
but the effects of the increase in credit expansion and how this distorted economic activity leading to malinvestment that need to be purged through a recession.
Aqui seria interessante fazer uma pausa e chamar
I think it would be interesting to pause quickly and highlight two different epistemological limitations
de políticas de meta de
in the actual practice of inflation targeting. One is the very ancient problem, which is the problem of the aggregates of the economy. Price indexes don't capture the relative changes in prices. So you see an index that says inflation was 2%. This doesn't reflect changes that some prices changed by 20%, some went down 20%, and these changes have allocative effects that affects the decisions of the economic agents, and the indexes don't capture this.
De todas as vezes que a gente trata com agregados.
This happens when we deal with aggregates.
Com agregados, mas a gente tem que entender a limitação.
It doesn't mean we shouldn't deal with aggregates, but we have to realize that they're limited. Aggregate information is limited. The second issue, epistemologically speaking, that allows us to be skeptical about inflation targets is the Cantillon effect.
É o fato de que as
the fact that
diferenças nos preços,
the differences in prices
elas ocorrem de uma maneira diferente
happen in such a
na
way
medida em que o dinheiro
that changes
novo
as the new money
produzido pelo Banco
produced
Central
by the central
chega
bank
mais rápido a um
arrives
setor da economia
more quickly
ou
to
outro.
one area of the economy than
Isso
another.
não está captado pelos instrumentos
And
que os
the
bancos
tools that
usam
the central bank
para
uses can't
praticar
capture this
metas de
as they
inflação.
practice inflation
Então,
targeting.
eles simplesmente não têm ferramentas
So they just don't have
para
tools
saber o que está
to
acontecendo
know what's happening
em termos de distorções econômicas
in terms of economic
provocadas
distortions
pela
caused by
expansão inflacionária de crédito.
the inflationary expansion of credit.
Então, atualmente pode-se afirmar que
So
a expansão
currently,
inflacionária de crédito de
we
longo
can
prazo
consider
sob
that
uma
expansion
estrutura
of
de
credit
meta de
over long
inflação
terms,
pode acontecer sem
this can't
comprometer a
happen
realização de uma meta de inflação
without affecting
medida
a target,
pela maioria dos
inflation target as it's
Isso foi verdade
measured
nos anos
by
20,
price indexes. This happened in the
tem sido
20s,
verdade desde os anos 90.
and it's been true since the
Contudo,
90s.
permanece o fato de que uma expansão inflacionária
However,
de crédito
what we see is
distorce
that
os
an
preços
inflationary
relativos
expansion
e
of credit
provoca rápidos aumentos na atividade econômica que posteriormente
causes increases
levam a
in
muitas falências.
economic activity who will later lead to bankruptcies.
Então, mesmo
So we can
tempo, as
conclude
políticas guiadas
that
somente com o objetivo
while
de
the
determinar
policies
o nível de preço
can
medido por um índice permitem discrição para as autoridades
these indexes allow discretion for the monetary activity, monetary authorities.
Sistema institucional suficiente.
And this is not an institutional system that's sufficient
pretende oferecer uma moeda
for a
boa,
society that wants to offer a sound currency
instrumento, para os indivíduos
as
aumentarem
a
a
tool
divisão do
for
trabalho,
individuals to increase the
serem
division of labor
e,
and be more productive
produzirem prosperidade.
and produce prosperity.
Era isso.
That's
Obrigado.
it. Thank you.
Obrigada. E antes de abrir uma
Thank you. And before we start a
conversa
brief
com o
discussion with the
gostaria de
professor,
lembrar que
I'd like to remind you that
recebeu
he
gentilmente do Instituto Mises Brasil os honorários
he
dessa palestra.
did not charge honorariums for this speech, and so we thank you, Professor.
Eu não sou professor, Carlos.
Desculpa,
I'm not a professor.
Desculpa, doutorando.
The doctoral candidate.
Acho que nós já temos uma pergunta, por favor.
I think we have a question
Você poderia
already.
se apresentar
Can
só
you
dizendo
introduce
o nome
yourself, tell
dele,
us where you're
por favor?
from?
Roberto,
My name is Roberto.
IEE aqui de Porto Alegre.
I'm from the IEE of Porto Alegre.
Como a gente sabe,
As we well know,
inflation targeting não é
inflation
estado
targeting
da arte, mas
is
é
not
a
state of the
arte
art,
do Estado.
but it is the art of the state.
Então, a pergunta que eu te faço é a seguinte:
So my question is,
o fim do curso forçado da moeda não seria uma solução para esse
wouldn't
problema?
the end of the course of currency be the solution? How can we migrate to this
Que implicações isso
system?
teria na economia?
And what implications would that, what effects would that have on the economy?
Quem é que bota o guiso no rabo do gato?
Who can harness the dog?
Eu acho que qualquer
I think anyone
medida que
that any measure
ponha a moeda que determinado estado produz em competição com
that
outras
puts
moedas,
particular currency in
sejam moedas
competition with
produzidas
another
por outros
currency,
estados,
uh,
sejam
currencies of
moedas
other states or
privadas,
private
de uma certa
currencies.
maneira, força alguma
In a certain way,
disciplina
this forces some discipline
naquele estado que está produzindo moedas.
on the state that is producing currency.
Da moeda num
If the
determinado
state has the
território,
monopoly
quer dizer, tem
on a particular
moeda que produz
territory,
curso legal forçado, quer dizer, tu não pode
if
optar
you
nas
can't
tuas
opt
transações
as to what
usar
currency
outras
you want
moedas,
to
ele
use,
pode abusar mais
they can
facilmente
abuse
daquela moeda
that currency more
que
easily
de outra forma.
than
Então, assim, o curso legal
in another
abolir o
option.
curso legal forçado,
So, abolishing this legally through a
contratação em
forced
outras moedas, eu acho que é o caminho para
allow the end the forced use of a currency and allow competition with other currencies is the pathway to make this change.
Acho que o caminho é esse.
I think that's the pathway.
Tinha mais alguém? Eu tenho uma pergunta escrita.
Anyone else have a written question? Anyone else in the audience? I believe that we can agree that the economy here in Brazil is moving towards a hole, going to the ditch. How big is the ditch here? How do you think the current intelligent government would react in this situation? And if this is a time to hold gold under our mattress, or do we need we don't need to be that desperate yet? Thank you. If I had a crystal ball, I would be working with Helio and making money. I have no idea. It's easy for me to say this from the outside. Brazil is larger than the ditch. There's no ditch as big as Brazil. We've been able to withstand a lot of abuse. Comparison to the abuse of the past, what's happening today is just a piece of cake. Wake up in if you were to wake up in 1990 with 50 bucks in your wallet, I had a payroll of 2,500 employees, and I had to pay at the end of the week. This helps you understand the reality through a different perspective. If you lived through Collor economic plan, you can survive anything.
Não tem nada de errado no país se tornar mais parecido.
There's nothing wrong with the country becoming more like Australia.
Se dedicar mais à produção de commodities.
More concentrate on commodity production, like Chile. It's 40% of their economy is exporting copper. You can have a dynamic economy. You can have a society that offers more opportunities to young people to find prosperity in an economy based on commodities. If you export a lot, thinking that the exchange rate won't increase, obviously you will. Obviously your currency will increase its value if you have a surplus. Maybe you can help me where this ditch is, because I don't see the ditch.
Bom, a próxima pergunta também é sobre a questão cenário brasileiro.
The next question is about the Brazilian scenario as well. In developed countries, inflation above 2% is considered unacceptable. In Brazil, we're over 6%, and the government seems to accept this. Can we see inflation below 2% in Brazil? What would you recommend? Manteiga? What would you recommend to Manteiga and to the president of the central bank? I think in the last year of President Lula, they loosened the minimal fiscal discipline that they had, and would sustain the growth of the country over the last 16 years. That's the minimum. Keeping an inflation rate of primary surplus, at least the government saves enough to pay its interest.